Hi, I'm Heidi Rader with the University of Alaska Cooperative Extension Service. We're here in Petersburg, Alaska for the 2023 Southeast Alaska Farmers Summit. And I'm talking with Scott Hansen of Sunnyside Farms in Haines, Alaska. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his operation and maybe if you could tell us why you got started and a little bit of what you grow, that would be great.
Okay, we're a family farm and we operate on 4 different fields, about 3.5 acres. And our goal is to be field row crop, higher volume producing, so that the communities that are around us can benefit from local production. So we operate in fields that we have basically developed. Some of them were cleared already. One was in development and use, and we just came alongside and worked with them, and then we brought one field out of 50 years of grass and turned that into an arable field of about 2 acres. And then a field we've just pulled out of the flats, took the brush out, pulled the roots out, and began a building process to make it a farmable field. And so it took a lot of work, building a road, Army Corps of Engineers permits and fish habitat permits, and a lot of dirt moving, and but it got us to the point where we could access the field. And so we grow potatoes, carrots, root crops, garlic. Part of that is the strategy, and brassicas too, and we also grow some of the greens and sell all those things. The purpose for that particular choice of crop is sort of practical in nature. In order to store those for more longevity, more sales, we constructed a root cellar, and so I brought carrots here in February to the Farmers Summit, and those ones we had harvested in October.
Those are delicious, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, we love them, a good sweet carrot, and we're learning a lot bit by bit. And but we've been able to produce last year about 4,000 pounds of marketable product, marketable carrots. Potatoes didn't do well that year, but that's fine because we made use of the extra space that the carrots or potatoes would have taken up.
So your primary crops are root crops, and then you've also got some berries and some other things that you grow too?
Yeah, greens and garlic. I just started into garlic. I've got some good advisors for garlic, so I'll wait on that a little bit. So we're basically building capacity right now and getting a situation where we know we can manage certain crops. And we did that with potatoes. We got 8,000 pounds one year out of a particular good field. So that gives a little confidence. You can kind of put that to the side a little bit and develop the next thing, and to diversify the types of crops we grow.
Are you growing a lot of different varieties, or have you tried a lot of different varieties, and what have you found to grow best?
Well, I consider myself early in the game. I'm a beginner. And so understanding the industry and understanding the factors, understanding marketing, storage, these are all factors to really get around before you can say, I can promise you a certain crop. If you can deliver it, great. If you don't really know if you can deliver it, then you should probably figure out how to deliver it first and get that top quality product first. And so we're just kind of getting over that to where you're getting a little confidence about how to deliver that high quality product every time.
And are you farming full time, or you also have some other work?
I supplement with prior contacts of work. You know, I work for the local municipality in a November through March capacity. So I don't get as much rest as other farmers might, but it does bring some extra cash in, and that does help. We still have 5 in the house, and so 5 children in the house, so there's plenty of life to be had with schooling at home and various projects, and everybody's got something going, and they're all getting older, and it's a good event. but we do supplement income, and that is basically like 3 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week. So there's still time to plan.
Great. And are you using high tunnels? You said you had a greenhouse. You grow starts in there, or what else do you grow in your greenhouse?
We do have a greenhouse, 24 by 24, and I forgot the numbers of what the square footage that is, but there are raised beds in that, and I actually have a heating system that runs off the hydro plant, the power plant. But I found that just the lights is basically, and heating the air is basically what I wanted. The insulated beds do help, but as I've come to learn more about greenhouses, it's basically going to be heated, and we'll do starts in there for the lettuces and brassicas that we'll plant. And then we've kind of settled on cucumbers, slicing cucumbers. They just grow so well.
What variety are you using?
It's the $1 a seed variety. It's like from Johnny's. It's like Nokia, or there's a couple other like that are good long producers, sweet, crunchy, and attractive, and I've sold a lot of those. In fact, we could sell them all, I think, but we like them so much we split it out, and those are a lot of fun to grow. We've grown tomatoes in there and cucumbers, or not cucumbers, but cantaloupe from time to time. And one more thing, what was that? We've grown strawberries in long beds. That's been a really interesting growth process, dealing with frost issues.
Are you using plastic over those strawberries, or how are you growing the strawberries?
Yeah, the mulch I use is a biodegradable black plastic mulch. The plastic that doesn't biodegrade is not a lot of fun to pull out of the ground. It's doable, but that's blister work, and we try to.
It's all tangled up with the weeds and.
Yeah, and you can pull the plastic, it breaks, and it stays in the ground. And it doesn't solve everything, because if you get a snowless winter and the frost gets underneath them, then they lift up with the frost, which is fine. But the problem is when the frost diminishes and each little plant, or the row, however we do that, that'll stay frozen. And so you create a little pyramid of ice, and then the plant can just fall off to the side and expose the roots.
So you're growing them as perennials?
We do rotate over and try to increase the crop that way, not just buying every year.
What varieties of strawberries are you growing?
We like the honey oy. That's a nice growing berry. It's a June bearing. I started with an ever bearing, day neutral style, and we had a strawberry this big in October, and it was slimy and tasteless and worthless because it didn't have enough sunshine to make any sugars grow in it. And so it was trying and trying. It's really fashioned for a warmer climate where they can have production for a lot more months of the year than us. So I've concluded that the June bearing is really the best for this area. One shot, finish it up, and put them to bed. And,
interesting.
Yeah.
Great. And you're overwintering those June bears.
Yeah, well, you can't help it. They're kind of in the ground. So, and they go for several years. It's hard to keep on top of all the weed growth. There's a type of grass that gets in there and shoots out little white things that penetrate plastic, and so it's quite an event to try to help those work. We've also done some trials with the state grant, several different varieties, weighing out the produce from that particular variety and comparing the different trials there.
Oh, great.
There's also a blueberry strain, 150 plants we've put in the ground on the lower end of the field.
Are those mid-high or?
I forget the variety. We put them in a year ago or more, and they are taken from the East Coast, some from Sweden, and I've got to the point where we're trying to make sure that they're going to do all right.
Okay.
And so we've set them up with the proper spacing as per the spec, and we'll just be lawn mowing between the rows.
And you're hoping to have enough to sell from those berries?
Yeah, of course. And we'll eat what the farmer's wife wants is what's going to be harvested first, and then after that, sales or it's a trial. I've never grown blueberries before, so we're branching off into that. We're in an area, we have another field down on the flats that we've developed, and that's a little bit wetter, and that might be something where berries can do well. Raspberries, blueberries.
So what do you see as the biggest challenge with farming in Southeast Alaska?
It is a new industry, and there's a high cost of starting up. There's not a lot of open fields to just pull the grass out of and start. I got one of those. Another thing is the culture of convenience, instant. What we want instantly. From whether it's information or data or food. If you really want to, if you want to pay the money, you'll get the food you want.
Yeah.
And I think that changes our perspective of the foods that we want, because we now select from what's available. And being having 10 children in our lives, there's a lot of nurturing that goes on, and the question inside me is, how do I want them to think? Do I want them to take the thought processes that are placed before them by people who are marketing stuff to them? Or is there a better way to think? A better way to think about how to think? And that's a hard thing to do, because it's hard to think about how you think. But this is part of growing food, because there are illustrations of very life-based items. When you put a seed in the ground and you have no power over it, and it has to die, and then life comes out of it. Those are deep concepts.
So this is a part of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, this has meaning. They're very meaningful things.
And...
Yeah, I've worked in an office for 20 years. I have airplane mechanic certification and did that. And those are all worthy things. But how should I spend my life? Is it just that I select from what's around me, or do we bring innovation and purpose and meaning into what we do? So that's part of what we're doing. It's a lot of hard work, and it's not very financially gratifying, and you're pushing the margins all the time, and there's uncertainties. And if you hurt yourself, what's going to happen? All these unknowns. But why not live there? Why not deal with those things? If we try to find comfort in life, it ends up basically ruining us. That's my philosophy. So I'm willing to embrace challenge. I feel like a pioneer. Is the one thing about one challenge is marketing. There's a lot of monoculture that's encouraged, and I believe that in times past, the industry of agriculture pushed farmers to bigger. Bigger is better. Get bigger, get out. I've read about things like that from the federal level, and whether it was intentional or perceived, it seems to be the way it was, and so. Is that the best way to go? Is it best to monocrop and use that maximum production as the metric for success? I certainly can't expect that of my children. That's inconsistent, because if my industry is something I wouldn't want my children to do or have to suffer with, then it's something to think about. And maybe those things shouldn't be the motivation we're looking at, and on we go. So I think that there's a wholesomeness that comes from working with agriculture.
That's great. Do you have some favorite tools or resources that you rely on? Well,
since I'm a professional mechanic, I guess you could say, I don't mind using tools. I mean, I was working with my tractor and it broke in half. It just physically broke in half. And it sheared a hydraulic pump and broke a couple other things. And it was either a boat anchor at that moment, or it was a tractor, and I had the capability to pull it apart and change the parts and put it back together.
Wow.
And I'm thankful for that. So those tools are handy, and there's still an infrastructure that supports repairing something like that. I don't try to use it for everything. You know, we do have a host of other things like, you know, four-wheelers and implements and hand hose. Some of our work is exclusively hand, like weeding the carrots. There are some interesting ways of maybe burning or other such things, but the timing of how the plants are maturing, we do that all by hand. So it's every 30 days a session of putting on the rain gear and scooting down the road.
Wow.
You know, and it's not the whole row because the middles, you know, can be either mechanically cultivated or just mown down before they go to seed. There is a variety of tools. I like to, I've seen evidences in other fields where there's a lot of turning, it becomes dusty, and I don't see that as the best growing medium. And so as I consider the various methods of from zero to maximum till and how to manage what we're looking for and using cover cropping to manage those and analyzing the soil, you know, I've got to, those are all coming together. I've had to use a lot of machines because we've had to move rock and we've had to, you know, take roots out of the ground, thousands and thousands and thousands of stumps, so brush stumps out of a 3-acre parcel. You know, so as much as I'd like to, you know, have it as idealistically as I can, you got to balance logistics and practicality and the technology that we do have, time saving, life. You know, do we want to do it the hard way or do we want to do it some other way? And you know, ingenuity comes into this. It's fun to be ingenious.
Yeah,
you know,
it is a fun thing about gardening and farming. Do you have to irrigate? Do you use drip irrigation or sprinklers?
I do have to irrigate from time to time, depending on the field. You know, the fields on the flats, the water table is probably, I don't know, 14 inches or something like that.
Oh, wow.
In some places, so that's probably not going to ever have to be irrigated, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Other places I don't have a water source, and so I've had to bring a dump truck in to bring a big tank I could fill from, you know, and that needs to be efficient, so you do use the drip system for that. Now if we used a irrigation pump and subsurface irrigation pipes and sprinklers, that has its place. So there are options out there, some really good creative options.
Yeah.
If technology lets us do that, as long as, you know, we've got the plastic tubing and all the fittings, and it does work. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone starting a farm in Southeast Alaska?
I don't think so. Just think about what you're supposed to do, and you know, I don't want to motivate someone to do if they really don't really think they should do it. You know, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And nobody's alone. So if you work together, then everybody kind of has to at least partially believe in what they're doing. You know, there are, you know, when you're a parent, you have some authority and you can manage your labor force by direction, you know, up to a certain point. You know, and it teaches you management understanding and how to learn how to motivate and learn how to describe why this thing that's the hard way is really the good way. You know, how do you do that? It's a challenge. I think it has made me more personable, more to care. I think that's one aspect of it. Any advice? Just to consider how to live. That's what I would say.
Do you have anything else to add about your farm, or?
Well, hopefully the goal is that we have a greater capacity within the state of Alaska, and I would be a piece of that for the Haines area.
That's great.
And we do have 2 grocery stores, and my hope is that at one point there will be just the right blending of pricing and capability and production. And I'm convinced it's a completely worthy product that can be grown and distributed and enjoyed. And I believe it's healthier than, you know, when you know where it came from and you're managing it yourself. And it's not just the health physical body health, but it's people connecting and saying, wow, we're doing this together. It's all coming together. So that is a good thing.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.